Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt is going to be teaching you how to play White Christmas. So this is one of my favorite holiday tunes, and I got a chance to play through it over the last couple days, and I have to say that it's perfect for the seasoned beginner / budding intermediate player. And one of the things that's great about it is that it really puts a focus on chordal movement. So what does that mean? Well, let me play a little bit. So you notice that as I'm playing throughout the entire span of the neck, I am moving in chord shapes. So if you've been looking for a piece that will challenge you by introducing new chord shapes and tying new chord shapes to movement going up and down the entire span of the neck, then this is going to be a really great piece. So not only does it sound cool, but it's also going to be a little bit challenging because it breaks you away from playing only here. So a lot of times beginners get stuck only in the beginning of the neck. So this is a great piece for working on breaking out of that. Now, speaking of chord movement, this song does move past the 12th fret one time in the arrangement, but fear not, soprano ukulele players, because we'll have a substitute chord you can play in lieu of that one so that you can play this arrangement on all three sizes, soprano, concert, or tenor. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the lesson. So in this video, Matt is going to teach you how to play the entire tune, but if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, you can click this link or go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for White Christmas. Also on that page, you'll be able to find the on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a really great asset in learning this song that much easier. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
This time we're going to do an arrangement of White Christmas, a song originally done by Irving Berlin. It's one of my favorite to get into the holiday mood. So let's go ahead and dive right in. To start here, we're going to play a G chord, and we're going to play this the way we usually do with our index finger here on the 2nd fret of the C, ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the E, and our middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the A. We're going to strum through all 4 using our thumb, and then we're going to do this little filler, which is going to be the G, C, E, and A strings all played after each other. So that first measure, measure 1, should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Pretty straightforward. We're just holding that chord. As we go to measure 2, though, things do get a little bit more interesting. We're going to start by going to an A minor 7 chord, and this is one of my favorites on the uke because we're going to take this G chord. We're going to slide the ring finger up to 5, and we're going to remove the index and the middle fingers because they're going to flip-flop. The ring finger is going to go here to the 4th fret of the C string, and the index finger is going to go here to the 3rd fret of the A string. We're going to strum through all 4 strings. And then we go back to that G chord again, where we just, again, slide that ring finger down to 3 and flip the other 2 fingers back. And we're going to play an F sharp chord. Pretty straightforward because we just take this G chord, we slide it down 1 fret, all 3 strings, and we're going to play just those 3 strings, the C, E, and A together, and then move it up and play a G chord. So this measure in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Again, it's really important that we use our ring finger as sort of our linchpin to this because we're sliding around with it. The first 2 measures now in time, though, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now going on to measure 3, we're going to go back to that same A minor 7 chord. So our ring finger is going to slide up to 5 on the E, the other 2 fingers flip-flop. And after we strum through this chord with our thumb, we're then going to play the G, C, E, A in the same way that we did before, that little filler only now it's over the A minor 7 instead of the G chord. Kind of cool, right? So measure 3 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now as we go into measure 4, we're going to introduce this cool little chromatic C sharp chord. It's quite spicy. We're going to take our middle finger here, place it on the 5th fret of the C string. Then taking our index finger, we're going to bar over the 4th fret of the E and the A strings. So we're fretting 5 and 4, 4. Using our thumb, we're going to strike the C, E, and the A all together. And then we're just going to take this and slide it up 1 fret to hit the D chord. So we have the C sharp into the D. And then we've got another little filler element for the end of this, which is going to be playing 6, 5, 5, just the C, then the E, then the A, one after another. So measure 4 sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now so that we can hear it, here's measures 3 into 4 in time. It should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Pretty neat. Now as we go into measure 5 here, we're going to go to a C chord. And this C chord is a different one than what we were playing before. We're going to take our middle finger, place it on the 8th fret of the E string, and our index finger here on the 7th fret of the A string, and play through all 4. It's a very bright C chord. And I want to note here that we have this chord appearing on beat 1. Some renditions of the song have this on beat 2, in which case you can actually just not play anything on beat 1 and then play this on beat 2. But I like to start with it here on beat 1. It makes the arrangement flow a little nicer. But just in case you were wondering why it sounded a little funny compared to some other renditions. Anyways, I'm going to play this C chord on beat 1 and 2 here. And then these 2 fingers here are going to actually slide up for the following beats of the song. I'm going to slide up to 10 and 9. So you notice that they're the same thing, just up 2 frets. I'm going to play those 2 with the thumb. And then they're going to slide up again, but this time the index is going to slide up to 10 on the A, and the ring is going to go to 12 on the E. So there's a 1 fret distance now between them when previously they were adjacent. I'm going to play those 2 at the same time. So measure 5 in time with it falling on beat 1 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, it can be very tempting to have your fingers come like this, with the middle finger coming off 1 on the E string. I think it's a good habit to try to get that ring finger there, but it's okay if you play it either way. I just think the ring finger is a good habit, good thing to develop. So now as we go to measure 6, you can see we're going to be playing an even higher version of this. We're going to be playing 12 on the A string and 14 on the E, which you'll notice is just that 10 and 12 moved up to 12 and 14. So you want your ring finger here on the 14th fret of the E and your index here on the 10 of the A. Now, if you're on a soprano uke and you are out of frets at this point, worry not. You can instead play this chord, which is just going to be 8 and 10 together. That will work just fine for things, but if you're playing with 14 frets, I highly recommend this version of the chord, the 0, 0, 14, 12, and right up there, right? So the soprano players, you can play the 12 there, 0, 0. So anyways, so now as we go through this next section here, we can play that 14 and 12, followed by then just the 10 and 12 on the E and the A. So you'll notice that my ring and index fingers just slide down. Right? Now I'm going to continue moving downward as I do this. I'm going to move down to the 10 and 9, and that's where I'm going to flip to my middle and index fingers, and then go down to 8 and 7 to get that. So that measure 6, should sound and look something like this when played. Here it is in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's just moving down. These are called thirds. It's a really cool trick to use with when you're playing. It's fun. So anyways, it's a nice harmony for this section of the song. So now measures 5 and 6 should sound something like this when put together. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And now we go to measure 7. And 7 has this cool little line because we're going to start with a G chord that isn't very common. We're going to take our middle finger, place it here on the 7th fret of the C string, our ring finger here on the 7th fret of the E, and our index finger here on 5 of the A. And we're going to play through 0, 7, 7, 5. And it's kind of difficult to get these fingers in there, so a little tip if you're struggling with it is to tilt your fingers towards your shoulder away from your uke. So if you're a right-handed player like I am, your left hand fingernails will go towards your right shoulder. If you play the other way, you'll point them towards the left. But I find that can help squeeze those fingers in there. And after we play this chord, we're then going to play the open G string. We're going to take this middle finger and just move it down 1 fret to fret 6 on the C. We're going to strum through all 4 strings. And this creates a G major 7, this nice little descending line. And then we're going to play the open G again. So measure 7 in time should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And as we go into measure 8, we're going to go to what's called a G6 chord. We're going to remove this hand completely because our middle finger is going to go 2 on the A and our index finger here on 2 of the C. So this creates our G6 chord. And that's the first start of that. And then we're going to take our ring finger and play here on the 3 of the E. And then we're going to go to a D7 chord. All that we have to do for this D7 is take our index and middle, which should be on these 2 2s, and move them up a string. So the index is going to 2 of the G string, and the middle finger is going to 2 of the E. You can see that now I have 2, 0, 2, 0. I'm going to play that, and that wraps up measure 8. So measure 8 should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... So 7 and 8 should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And just to kind of get a feel for the song, let's go ahead and play the first 8 bars all together of the tune. So we're going to start back at measure 1 and play all the way through this so that you can get a feel what it sounds like nice and slow. 2 and 3 and 4 and... So now at this point, we're going to go on to measure 9. Measure 9 is going to start with a G chord and our typical low G chord, but in a different fingering. We're actually going to fret this G chord with a bar on your index finger over the 2nd fret of the C, E, and the A strings, and then take the middle finger and place it here on the 3rd fret of the E. The reason for this is because the very next chord, the other half of the measure, you're just going to remove that middle finger and leave that bar across 2 of the C, E, and A to get a G major 7. Pretty cool, right? So measure 9 in time, just those 2 chords, is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... From this point, we're going to go on to measure 10, and on measure 10, we're going to play a G7 chord, as we normally would. Middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, index finger here on the 1st fret of the E string, ring finger here on the 2nd fret of the A. We're going to play that for one beat, and then we're going to go to this G13 chord, which this chord's been coming up a lot recently in songs I've been playing, and I love it. It's just such a cool, tense, but cool sound. And the way that we're going to play it is we're going to take our index finger and we're going to bar it across the 5th fret, but it's really only important to be on the C string. And when we go across, we don't want the G string. So it's really starting here on 5C, going straight down across, and we don't need it to make a connection with the E and the A strings, but it's okay for them to be touching because we're then going to take the ring finger and bar across the E and the A strings on the 7th fret of the A string and the E string. So we're going to play through all 4 of those to create that sound. Listen how cool, jazzy that sound is. So that pseudo double bar makes it a little bit easier to play. And then the last note of this measure is going to be 5 on the A, which if we fold the bar all the way across the C, E, and A strings with the index finger, we have right there. Pretty cool, right? So measure 10 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now measure 9 and 10 together should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now, as we go into the next section here, we're going to be looking at a C chord, but a little bit different of a C chord than what we normally play. We're going to play 5, 4, 3. So we're going to use our ring finger here on the 5th fret of the G string, our middle finger here on the 4th fret of the C, and our index finger here on the 3rd fret of the E. It's kind of like a B flat chord, only we don't need the A string played. So it's just those 3 strings. We're going to play through all 3 of those strings, stopping on the A. And then we're going to play just the 3 on the E a second time. And then that's the end of that measure. So 11 sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Pretty straightforward measure. Going on to 12, we're going to play 0, 3, 3. So we're going to bar the index finger across the 3rd fret of the C, E, and the A strings. We're going to pluck the G, C, and E strings, stopping on the A. Then the ring finger is going to go here, 5 on the A. So we're going to go. And then for the last note of that measure, we take off the ring finger, play 3 on the A, which is built into that bar. So measure 12 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... So now 11 and 12 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now as we go on to measure 13, we're going to play a G chord again. Same way that we did at the start of the song with the 3 different fingers. And what you'll notice about 13, it's actually exactly the same as measure 1. So we're going to play through the G chord, then G, C, E, A. So 13 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... As we go on into measure 14 now, we're going to play a C chord to start. Take your ring finger and you can play it right here on the 3rd fret of the A string. You also could, if you want to, use your middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the A string because you just came from a G chord. And where you're going after this is another G chord. So both ways are correct. It's kind of interesting to try both just to get comfortable with playing different fingerings of the same chord. So playing the C chord doesn't really matter, middle or ring. Try the middle though. Going to a G chord, same way that we played it in the last measure. Then we go to an A7. All that we do for that is take off our ring and middle fingers and slide our index finger down 1 fret to the 1st fret on the C string. Play through all 4. Then our ring finger comes here on 3 of the E to play. And that ends measure 14. So 14 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now 13 and 14 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And as we go into 15, I couldn't help myself. Measure 15 starts with an A minor 7, but a different way than how we usually play it. All open doesn't get easier than that, right? We're gonna play A minor 7, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then we're going to do the little fill with G, C, E, A right afterwards. So all open, all zeros, the whole measure. So 15 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Pretty cool. And now we're going to go to 16, which is going to go to a D7, the same way we played it earlier. Index finger here on the 2nd fret of the G string. Middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the E. And then to finish that measure, we're going to play 3 on the A. So measure 16 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now 15 and 16 should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now let's hear 9 through 16, because you can hear 16, it sort of wants to start over, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But measures 9 through 16 should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now at this point, you'll notice that the song essentially repeats. And so where we're going back to is the very start of the song, where you can see essentially the little coda symbol. So we're going to go back to measure 1 at this point and play through measure 1 all over again. So if we look at it from the repeat standpoint, if we hear sort of measure 16 going into 1, it should sound something like this, going. And then we go into measure 1 again and play. We play all these sections the same. Four. We're at measure 8 now. Now, this is the very last note of measure 10. At this point here on measure 10, we are actually going to start back and go to the end section of the song. So you'll see at measure 10, it says Dakota. So at this point, we're going to go to measure 17. So as we come off of measure 10 and we play that 5 on the A, instead of doing measure 11, we're going to now go to measure 17. We're going to jump all the way up to the 0, 0, 12, 10 chord, which is a new C chord. So we're now at measure 17. To play this chord, we're going to use our ring finger here on 12 of the E, index finger here on 10 of the A, strum through all 4 strings, and then we're going to play the 10 on the A 3 times. So we have this sort of 1 and 2 and 3 and that's measure 17, something in time, something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. As we go into 18 now, we're going to take our middle finger and place on the 11th fret of the E string, removing the ring, and play 0, 0, 11, 10, which is a beautiful C minor chord here. So we're going to play that chord, let it ring for 2 beats. And then we're going to slide our middle finger down to 3 on the E. So you'll notice it's already on the E string. We just slide it on down. And then the open A. So 18 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So 17 and 18 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now we're going to go to measure 19. We're going to start with a G chord. No problem there. Chord we've been playing a whole bunch with 3 fingers. Then we're going to go to a D diminished 7. This is a little more spicy of a chord. We're going to stack our fingers. Index here on the 1st fret of the G string. Ring finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string. Middle finger here on the 1st fret of the E string. And pinky finger here on the 2nd fret of the A string. Strum through all 4. So measure 19 in time, pretty straightforward. G chord and D diminished 7, each getting 2 beats. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. As we go into measure 20, we're going to play a C chord in a different way than we have. We're going to take our pinky finger, place it here on the 7th fret of the A string, and strum through all 4 strings. And that's it. Pretty nice. But then the trick here is the next note's a 2 on the E, and we want to use our middle finger there. So we're going to remove the pinky, place the 2 on the E string with the middle. The reason is the next thing that we play is that D7, which we just add our index finger to 2 of the G, since our middle finger is already here on 2 of the E string. We'll play the 2 on the E one more time at that measure. So measure 20 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now 19 and 20 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And at this point, I like to start slowing down. You know, it sounds really nice to slow down the end of the song because this really is the final part. And so at around that D diminished 7, it's okay to hold it a little while. So now we go on to measure 21. In 21, we're going to play a G chord as we normally do, but we're not going to play the A string because then we're going to play the open A. So we're lifting off the middle finger and then placing that middle finger back on. And then the open G string. And that measure is just those 4 individual beats. So we're going to play the G without the A, open A, 2 on the A, open G. So in time, 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then to end it, we're going to go to my all-time favorite G chord on the ukulele. 0, 11, 10, 10. Take our middle finger, place it on the 11th fret of the C string. Then take your index finger and bar it across the 10th fret of the E and the A strings. So we have 11 on the C string with the middle finger, and we have the 10 on the E and the A with the index in that little bar. We're going to strum through all 4. And in time, that's something like this. So the last 2 measures, 21 into 22, should sound like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So just so we can hear it, here's measure 17 through the end. So as soon as we move to that coda section, should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. One little tip is when you play that open G just before the last chord, start the movement down, and then you won't struggle with getting all the way down there because by playing that open G, you allow your hand to be freed up to move up and play that beautiful G chord at the end. And there you have it. There is White Christmas, a lot of fun to play, and it's a lot of fun to add some rubato, which is, playing with feeling. You don't have to follow the timings all exactly as they're written. Play it based on your feel. Everybody knows this song, right? It's just ingrained into us because if you've ever been to a mall in the months of, November through January, it feels like you've probably heard this song a few hundred times. So it's a beautiful tune, though. A lot of fun to play. Had some feeling and rubato. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. I look forward to the next tutorial here on Rock Class 101. Thanks.
All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed learning this tune. It's a lot of fun to play. A really great one for that seasoned beginner, budding intermediate player. And a lot of fun with the chordal movement. So breaking away from playing only in the beginning of the neck and learning different shapes that move throughout the span of the neck. So a lot of fun there. And by the way, if you're new to studying how you can take these basic chord shapes and move them up the neck until they become other shapes, then check out this lesson on the caged method. This is a really cool tool that you can use. And let me give you one example. For example, if you are at a jam scenario and everyone is playing a basic C chord, most of the time you're going to copy them and play this C. So you may have 2, 3, 4, 5 ukulele players playing the same stock C chord, but you can be different if you learn the caged method. You can take a G chord shape, move it up the neck until it becomes a C, and you can play a nice harmony of that C over the stock lower sounding C. And you can be a little bit different. You can add to the music. So that is a really, really cool concept to learn. So check out that lesson if you're new to moving shapes up the neck. But jumping back to this lesson, I do want to give you a friendly reminder. If you want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, you can do so by clicking this link or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for White Christmas. And don't forget too, on that page was that on-screen tab viewer, so that interactive tab player where you can hit play, you can loop bars, you can slow it down to any speed. Just a really great tool for learning this song so much easier. All right, guys. So again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll see you in the next one, and have a very Merry Christmas.